So hopefully I can do this video without disturbances now. Aside from that, I'm feeling inspired anyway in a good way. So, despite the craziness of this world, and all this nutty, hateful assholes online, I think the fundamental reason for the internet being a wonderful tool for people who want to learn from each other and collaborate and make great communities, as well as it being a honeypot for haters, is the reason why it's honeypot for haters is because they don't know how to develop, or they haven't been, not necessarily don't know, but I guess that's one variable depending on which ones they are. They are incredibly dysfunctional then in person to person contact, and rather than admit that, again, rather than have the insight that is infinitely revealing about the self, they rather pretend that they're all amazing and be cocky about it. We see that a lot from haters, narcissistic personality disorders. And I think everyone has some narcissism here and there. But to level such dysfunctionality that we see on the internet, it's why they do it. Because they are dysfunctional out there in I don't want to say the real world, because these are the types of people who also fail to realize that the internet is an extension of the real world, not the real world being an extension of the internet, if you will. The internet is an extension of the real world, and people putting text on the screen is because there's a person doing it. Of course, you can program a bot doing it to do it, but who programmed the bot? A real person, right? This is disconnect that these haters enjoy because they fail to cope with the actual connect with person to person context, and there's far more easier to communicate with people via person to person. Can see them and see what they're saying within context, and context often is something that haters deliberately ignore because they always want to be right. Of course, this is why video communication has become such a useful thing, is you understand the tone of what's being said, and whether someone's sarcastic or joking, sarcastic jokes and so on, or how genuine they are, perhaps in their body language and so on. But going back to being inspired anyway, I just thought I'd get that off my chest, is there's reasons why these idiots are like this, but fundamentally the bottom line is they will not admit to themselves. They rather feel good about themselves via not truth or fact, but via a fantasy of superiority that gives them a fantasy boner. Really, I think. I don't know what. However you want to term it, it's all fantasy. They really think, again, everyone's a bit narcissistic, but this, as some of you know, I use this 9-10-year-old laptop, and you think, God, you want to get up to date, don't you? And in some ways, this is relatively outdated. In many other ways, it's not, because of what I've done to it. Slammed 16 gig in there. It's an i7. Came with an i7 processor anyway. Put an SSD in there. Hard drive, SATA drive in there as well, so 2 ways to boot separately. I encourage that a lot. People doing dual boots on one drive, I think you might want to see if you can work around not doing that. If you have to have dual boot, and you only got one drive and you're doing it that way, just be cautious, because anything that goes wrong with the drive, you now don't have access to the other boot. Like if I was to put Linux on one boot startup option and Windows both on the same hard drive, it's been a lot of people who've done this will hear a lot of other people saying that's not a good idea for those reasons. So I have them separately. On the MSATA I have Windows 7. Yeah, the great Windows 7. Probably the best thing Microsoft have done for a long time. Windows 10 can get bent. I'm very privacy driven, if you will, when it comes to some aspects of using my computer, and I want ownership of my computer. When you run Windows, you don't own your computer. Microsoft owns it. They bought it for them to have a nose and peek at. Forced updates halfway through, so your productivity actually will go up when you use Linux. However, it's not always true depending on what software you're using. Some software sets will not run on Linux. You can get virtual machines to run, but again, that's, as far as I can understand, it'd be resource intensive anyway. And you can get compatibility via Wine and run. Like for instance, there's a way to run Sony Vegas, the video editing suite, on Linux. And surprised at that, and Linux, some hardcore Linux users might actually say, well, use Kdenlive. It's the equivalent of Sony Vegas. It's not. Kdenlive is okay to dabble with, but compared to Sony Vegas, it sucks. It really does. It's not intuitive. It's things you got to double do, just to make in different ways to make sure it's done properly. It's not as good as it should be, as good as it promises to be. But bold boasting promises are often fake. It's the quieter voices out there you need to look for, like when the YouTube users are not too overly cocky about themselves as well. I mentioned that in a previous video where I talk about, look at those profiles, beware of those boasting profiles that gear towards fantasy rather than fact, and they don't encourage intellectual honesty wherever they could. Instead, they want to believe the fantasy, right? I've ordered off eBay. I got a T410S with NVIDIA. I want to dabble a little bit with NVIDIA graphics dedicated. The T410S is a ThinkPad again, so it's a laptop with dedicated graphics. In the 2000s, I guess, some laptops it was popular for them to have dedicated graphics inside. Actually, now it's pretty much unheard of, but they were too big. In my personal preference, they were more like desktop replacements. And as somebody who used to use desktops and unplug and plug in, let's get a new graphics card and have fun with this modularity. I understand the fun side and interest of having laptops that you can modify, and this X220 SSD changed, upgraded the memory, upgraded a Bluetooth Wi-Fi chip that isn't really designed to go in this machine, but you flash the BIOS to make it go, and you cut one of the pins off, believe it or not, to do that. I like that kind of stuff. Put an MSATA drive in there to replace the mobile phone networks chip. Replace that. And what else have I done to this? Put a new keyboard on. And all these things. I've seen a base as well, where you get one of these. If you look at this, it's there's the, don't know if you can see that, there's the end of the laptop, and then there's on a base. This base actually allows me, in the base there's a slot to put in things like a compact disc drive. Laptops don't really come with compact discs anymore, but you can still buy writable and rewritable discs that might be handy with some projects you have. Some music I've created, I'll hand them round to friends and say, have a listen to this. And you can do that. You can also use a modification for the tray that comes out to put in a SSD into that tray instead of a CD drive tray. To connect the actual edge connector for all that adaptations is the same. There's a whole range of ports out the back of the base for keeping audio and microphone separate as well. That's a good point, actually. I want to make sure something right now. Properties, yeah, using the right microphone. Otherwise I would have to do this video all over again. I think I might give it that point, or well, just do it later. Researching the ThinkPad ranges inspired me, and money permitting, I'm on a very limited budget, so whenever I can, I might actually look into buying different ones and playing with them, modifying them. Some of them actually don't have, most laptops, especially today, will have your CPU soldered into the main board. Unlike a desktop, you'll have a socket, like a i5 would fit in one socket, same as like a i7 would fit in that same socket. You just swap them, right? So there's things that you can do with some of the ThinkPad range, these mobile sort of laptops, and they're robust. Yeah, they've got plastic casing that does eventually go brittle and break and wear and tear over time. But overall, it's pretty durable casing. Buy a laptop today, fancy new sort of fashionable laptop, if you will, and I'd be scared to take it with me the way I just travel around, because, or used to travel around, because again, just going to and fro, but can't do that at the moment because of restrictions, which is fine. I'm happy to keep my ass parked at home until things get better, and I'm saving lives by doing so, because who knows, if I'm carrying this, which apparently 1 in 3 people, some scientists said that it's not confirmed, but potentially 1 in 3 people could be carriers with no side effects. We spread that out. That this is why, just because you're not suffering doesn't mean you haven't got it. Stay at home, save people's lives, keep your hands clean, keep your distance and all that. By all means, you've still got your rights, and your rights not being taken from you. Just go out for a walk, get some exercise, and come back and clean up. Wash your hands, keep clean. So I might get a tablet version of one of these, the X220 anyway. I think that would be enjoyable to experience, and I got some memory chips here lying around. I got a SSD lying around, so I'm looking on eBay. Sometimes people sell laptops, no memory, no hard drive, and if I could get one of them, I nearly did get one last night on an auction. Word of advice on auctions: don't vote or bid too early. I mean, it should be obvious, but wait till the very last seconds. I would. At least you get more potential of winning then. And don't obviously don't go above your limit. And keep an eye on postage, because what you bid, you'll pay extra with postage if there's any postage to be paid as well. you'll pay that on top of what you bid. So, just be careful with that. So there's a Lenovo ThinkPad 230. This is the X220, and there's a X230i tablet as well. Some of those come in i3, i7, i5s as well. That's out of my price range. There's one that I'm looking at. They're nice. There's some relatively brand new looking ones out there still even now. 254 is way above my price range. Now there's a fine line. There's always that fine line to the cost of things. There is a 149 one. ThinkPad tablet. I might even be happy to get that. £6 postage. Here and there, I'm just on a decider whether to get that. And I have this other one on order which dedicated graphics in, and I could play with that and mod that as well. So, and there's, I have one that normally would be streaming the music. I'm playing with different installation on that because I'm learning about Pop OS. Again, this is why I'm inspired a bit, because Linux is really, it's been said before, like 2020 or 2019, the year of Linux. People are starting to say, this year is the year of Linux. And they've said it a couple of years, but each year there seems to be leaps and bounds in collaboration across the community to fix things, patch things, and it's phenomenal what can be done. The model of how Linux works via the community, the philosophy behind it, the work ethic, if you will, or whatever it is. It's not perfect, but it works, and I think it works in many ways way better than Microsoft works. Microsoft is an entirely different business model. Windows is now a service that you pay for. It's not a product you buy and you're done. You don't have control over your machine when you're using Windows. You might think you do, and every time you use Cortana, it's just reported straight back to Microsoft servers, and then you're just going to start seeing adverts actually on browsers as well that is related to all the data that you're sharing. You can turn that off. I don't know if they fixed it, but there was this uproar over privacy details being not private anymore, privacy settings, after every single time there was a forced update on Windows 10. And this is one of the big kickers with Windows and Microsoft. Those forced updates, it slam you in the face. It's like, we're going to restart your machine. It's like, yeah, really? I hate that. And, not now. Although Windows 7 used to be click later, do it later. But now it's very forceful, it's very aggressive, it's very in your face, and you get these updates. Restart your machine. Oh, update didn't work, you can get that sometimes. Rolling back to an earlier restore point, perhaps. You don't get any of that nonsense with Linux. You could run a program, leave it sit to run the program, depending on your distro, and it won't do that indefinitely. And completely indefinitely. There's some versions of Ubuntu with slight exceptions, but you have the choice, and these installations are free. They come with magazines on CDs. You pay for the magazine and you get a free CD, or perhaps if you really think about it, perhaps you get a free magazine and you're paying for the CD. Regardless, it's free software. It really is. FOSS, free open source software. I'm down with the open source mentality, and there's ways to make money on open source if you're an expert in all that. But I'm not. I'm more of a customer than a nerdy intervener. Um, but that mindset, like the software we installed for exploratoryminds.com, the servers there, the social pages, it's all open source, but we paid for it because the original installation, the original setup, is something that we pay for, and you can change what the hell you want. I talked about that before, and we have marketplace now, which means basically you can create an advert for something that you got for sale, and you use a PayPal code button. You paste your own code in there, create a PayPal checkout account. Just make sure your details in your advert are the same as what people get to on your PayPal account, like the price and everything else. Alright, and PayPal offers guest accounts as well, so you don't have to have a PayPal account to use that. It's very rudimentary as sort of ways which eBay works, I guess, in some ways. Very basic, rudimentary. Taking the bare bones of something like how eBay would work. And that's all we need for now. But I do want to do things like countdowns and auctions. Eventually, perhaps. That's. It would be nice to have. It's not necessarily a must. It's certainly not a must at the moment. That would be nice to have at a future date, like when the site, if and when it gets really busy. At the moment, it's not really needed at all. It's not a requirement in terms of user enjoyment, but it would be an idea down the line that I would consider on a checklist to do things if we needed that. Now, if that was something that the user base wanted as well. But you have the ability to just one button and you click sold, item has been sold, or you can just delete the advert anyway. But it would be more beneficial probably in a busier situation where click it sold, so people are informed immediately, oh, it's been sold, and then delete it afterwards rather than just delete. Where did that advert go? Particularly if there was multiple adverts and you're searching through, and we have a search engine for the marketplace pages as well, and you click your categories, your high price, your lowest price. We have all that. So again, feeling inspired. We had it installed and running before January this year, so it was the last couple of days left in last year, and it's a great achievement because I didn't expect it till mid to late January after all the plugging away all the different bells and whistles and seeing what PHP code would work with what. I'm not an expert programmer when it comes to PHP, and many of the people will know that once they work with me. I don't struggle to get my brain around some aspects of things like that. I'm not very academic in that way. I don't think linear structured ways too well. As you can tell from the videos, I'm kind of all over the place, and there's many people like that. Many people like that are often creative. You get the other way, people the opposite are often very business-like as well, but that's a generalization. But that's something else that, as some of you know, has fascinated me, is the aspects of the mind, how we run programs actually in our minds. It dictates how we behave and beliefs and things. Insight is always revealing, right? It's interesting, really, all this. There's lots of ThinkPad range, and some are more changeable and upgradable than others. The old set, not there's more modern new sets now, and Lenovo brought out a anniversary one or something, or 20 years celebration one. I don't know what that one entails, and it's probably beyond my price range. But some of the tablet range have a good touchscreen, Gorilla Glass, and all that. I've changed the screen actually on this one to increase the resolution actually, and if you run Pop OS, it looks beautiful. That is Linux Pop OS. Linux Pop OS was originally put together by, of course, you wouldn't say it was entirely put together by them, because knowing how the Linux community works, you take code from one distro or a program from another and all that. It's a collaboration. It's almost non-local, like a fractal, like you got your pick and mix. But who's really responsible for the final product then? Linux Pop OS is System 76. Now, System 76 is the only, as far as I can tell, is the only company out there who is selling custom-made laptops with Linux pre-installed, and all the hardware they're using is Linux compatible, and Linux is always evolving anyway, so it's people saying, oh, we got a patch for this or code for this and that, compatibility to make things, hardware run better here and there. Nvidia are struggle to get around because they're not honest about their hardware architecture, and they got some secrets to hold back and all that. I saw a talk from Linus Torvalds, the guy who's really kind of indirectly responsible for Linux. He designed the original kernel, the command line, and many alterations have gone on since then, and he still uses the command line. He doesn't, as far as I've heard, and he doesn't really he doesn't prefer a graphical user interface, and it's a very smart, intelligent individual. If it wasn't for him, we wouldn't have this amazing ability. It feels like a sense of freedom to me running Linux. There's still that fine thread that Microsoft holds you onto, and because of compatibility with certain software sometimes, and because of secrecy from companies like Nvidia, which won't reveal all the source code and all this to cooperate and with them to run open source software on the Linux and all this. Linus Torvalds actually sent him out a big talk, right? He looked at the camera, stuck his middle finger up, and said, Nvidia, fuck you. That's what he said. It's like, and he's got every right to say that, because I think the way to go in technology should be more honest, more open. What are you hiding? It's why, Microsoft is more really a business environment now because of the way things are evolving, and it always was. It started that way, and then the general public got involved where it wasn't so much business, it was just your home machine which you could play games on and do other fun stuff on, run art programs on. But now that's really not the case anymore. There's many cool art programs for Linux as well. Depending on the power of your machine, you can run some 3D modeling stuff as well. And I think the best, unless you can afford a System 76 machine, your best other option on a limited budget is these old ThinkPad range, these Lenovo ThinkPads, which are situated on the International Space Station. If you look at some photos of the footage from the ISS, you got ThinkPads actually docked onto some docking bays here and there. You can tell them straight away. You got the red joystick, the nipple button thing. I don't, have to look at some pictures and find out which models they're running. Be cool if they got an X220 on board. Yeah, I think a tablet, one of these would be fun to look at as well, in terms of usability, because again, it's more portable, and I just like to play with the ideas of this and making it it's cheap, and it's different things you could do along the line to plug into it. And again, some of the older ThinkPad range, just a few models, not many, actually have the ability to change the CPU. Like an i5 could be upgraded to an i7. Of course, you've got to watch for heat on that as well. So more processing power generates more heat, or asking more power electrically as well. You could short things out, so you've got to be careful with certain things. Do your homework, look at BIOS settings and all that. I'm not an expert, but I would be more akin to somebody that, hey, you can do this and this, because this YouTuber and that YouTuber have the information on it. Go find out how it works. Like Laptop Retrospective, I'm glad I found him, because I would never have upgraded my Bluetooth and Wi-Fi chip in this machine without him showing how it's done in his videos. And I never knew that you could put a mSATA chip inside your machine. So that's, in a nutshell, feeling inspired. Linux OS, Pop! OS, sorry, actually has such compatibility with hardware. It's phenomenal. You immediately, even testing it off, running it off the CD without installing it, given a demo, it pretty much found all the hardware and found the Wi-Fi and everything else, and it reports this in detail. A Bluetooth keyboard. What do I mean in detail? Well, it reports. I seen a pop-up come on a screen earlier today. Keyboard battery is low. So the data via the Bluetooth. Windows never did that. I've never seen that. I've used this with Windows a few times, and I've never seen it do that. So there's data there being reported via the Bluetooth that can be interpreted that way, and hopefully it's a correct interpretation, and I think it's correct, because it gives you a actual meter thing, how much battery life you got left as well. That's pretty impressive. It looks beautiful graphically. Linux Pop! OS, the contrast on the colors, it just is apparently some kind of technology that it utilizes in the software to make it look clear. They're very sharp and clear. I noticed a very marked difference between using Linux Peppermint 10 and Linux OS with the clarity on what's in front of me. So check that out. Check out Laptop Retrospective. Check out these old machines if you're into that. Check out Linux Pop! OS again. By System76. Check out system76.com. If you're interested in any of these things, and upgrading machine, playing with hardware, swapping SSDs here and there, it's something that's really cool. That it brings in that feeling of, You're doing this. It's not something you're paying for. It's not a service you're paying for. You're doing it. You're in charge. And you have some uniqueness. You put your own stamp on these things. There's no X220s that have ever been shipped with a mSATA drive installed in there because they didn't really exist when the X220 came out. But instead in there was the mobile phone WLAN card. You don't need that. You take that out, swap it for an mSATA drive. You've got 2 ways of booting. And you can get, I think you can get a terabyte ones of those now. So that's impressive. Yeah, 1 terabyte system. Memory drive, sorry, you know, the mSATA drive. Thanks for watching anyway, take care, and I look forward to doing another video soon. Bye.